How you folks doing? Today, we are going to be learning how you can make your very own hyperlapse. So a hyperlapse essentially is a moving time lapse. You are going to be moving the camera while staying on one certain focal point, and as you move the camera, time is going to be passing just like a time lapse, but it has this really cool type of effect that a lot of people are wondering how to do. This isn't the only way to do a hyperlapse, it's just the way that I learned, and I found it to be very easy. I ended up learning it in I think a day. So today we are going to teach you how to do one. Alright, so what you're going to want to do now is you're going to want to open up Lightroom. Now when you get in Lightroom, head to Library, Import Photos, and then search for the folder that has all of your raw files in it. So mine is right here on my desktop. If yours are not all highlighted like this and checked, make sure that you click Check All, and then you can go ahead and import those photos. Now this might take a while depending on how many photos you have, so this is just kind of a patient process. They're imported, head over to the Develop tab, and then this is where you start to have fun and get to color your photos. Okay, so what I like to do is I like to scrub through to about the middle and click on an image there because it's probably where the majority of your photos are going to have the same exposure. So you're going to want to click that image there and then start to tweak and adjust however you want the photo to look on that one image. Okay, so I'm going to do that now. Boys and girls, will we ever learn? With the color grade that you ended up putting on your photo, you're going to want to make sure that photo is still selected. You're going to scrub through to the very beginning, and if you're on a Mac, hold Shift and then click, and then go over here to this sync over here, click that, and then make sure everything's selected which needs to be selected, the corrections that you made, and then go ahead and click synchronize. Even when that finishes up there, it's still going to be changing the photos here, so don't worry if you don't see the little thumbnails changing right away. And you're going to want to go back to that same image that you did in the first place, click that one again, scrub through to the end, hold Shift, click, and then click sync again as well, and then go ahead and click synchronize, and all of those pictures are going to be pasted to the same color grade that you made initially. This might take a while for them to all sync up and look the same, but I ended up doing a pretty wild color grade, and the blues a little bit too intense for my liking, but for the sake of the tutorial we're going to keep going. Alright, so now you're going to go to the first image, scroll all the way to the other side, and you're going to collect the last image there, if my thing will get there. Select that, head up to File, Export. Now you're going to export it to a folder, not the one that you stored the RAWs in, but a separate folder. Alright, so go ahead and click that folder, choose, and then export. I find that out of the whole hyperlapse making process, aside from going out and shooting it, this process takes the longest, exporting these files. So I'm going to time-lapse through this, and we're going to get this done so we can hop into the fun part, actually compiling it in After Effects. Alright, so as those Lightroom photos are exporting, don't be afraid to kick back, relax, get yourself a good book. If you're going to read a book, I highly suggest this one, Own the Moment by Carl Lenz. It's an extremely good read. Or this one, Daggum Holy Bible. It's a good one, I promise you that. Alright, we're done exporting. Let's get back into it. Done exporting here, you can go ahead and open up After Effects. Okay, now you can do some color grading in there, so some people do prefer to do all of their coloring in After Effects as well as their stabilization and exporting. I like to do it in Lightroom because I'm more familiar with this program, and I don't think there are as many options for color grading in After Effects. So that's why I decided to do this workflow. But it is pretty easy. In After Effects, go ahead and create a new project if you haven't already. And now what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go over into this left box over here, push Command I for Max, and that's going to open up your folders. So you can go into your edited ones that you just exported, hit those, and this is the part where a lot of people mess up. All you have to do is click the very first one, okay? And then go down to Options, do import JPEG sequence and then open. You don't actually have to go in and select all of those. It'll automatically compile them into a sequence. Alright, so once that JPEG sequence has been imported, you're going to click it and drag it down into this timeline, okay? And then that's going to create just this rendering of what the hyperlapse is going to look like. But as you can see, as it renders through, it's very choppy. I didn't do a very good job of keeping it straight on that clock face, but that's what we're going to worry about now. Over into this Effects and Presets panel, and you're going to search something called Warp Stabilizer. Okay, VFX. Now you're going to click that and you're going to drag that right onto your timeline. You can also drag it over here if you want. And alright, so now it's going to start analyzing in the background, and what that's doing is it's figuring out what your focal point is of the image, and it's going to lock onto that and then probably crop in. It typically crops in so that by the end of this rendering, which is going on over here, you can have a smooth image. Over here, you can kind of customize what you want your stabilization to look like. So typically I find that the smoothness at 50% is pretty typical. That's what most people do. Otherwise, I mean, if you do have a really shaky image, you might have to go higher than that, but at that point it's really not even worth it in my opinion. But I find that 50% is where you want to be. That's your top. You can go lower than that, but I find that any higher than that, it just doesn't look good. Okay, so I like to keep it on subspace warp here. You can mess around with these, but that's what I typically like. And then I keep this here at smooth motion. No motion is, you don't want that. Okay, so once this renders out, we'll be good to go. Our last few seconds or stages of rendering here. Now the image is completely stabilized. You can go ahead and play this back in the timeline. It's still going to be choppy because, this is how After Effects works. But as you can see, it's a lot more stabilized than it was the very first time. Okay, so now what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go to File, Export, and then Add to your Render Queue. So that's going to add over to this render queue over here. You're going to want to name your project here and then choose where to save it, and then click render. So now it's going to start rendering over here, and once that's done, it will export to your desktop, and then you have your very own hyperlapse. Check out the finished product. Alright, so I'm going to X out of this. Don't save. Okay, and then you're going to head to exactly where you exported it. I just threw mine on the desktop. Good grief, I can't talk. Click it. It's typically going to have to do this converting thing, and I don't really know why it does that. It just does, especially with these After Effects files, probably because they're just so big. So we'll just wait a second as that renders through. It doesn't look too bad. It's probably, I think this is one of the first one. This was the first hyperlapse I ever did. So there were a few parts of it that I wasn't really sure what I was doing. So that's where you kind of get the jitters in the beginning. But for the most part, it looks good. Color grade's awful. I hate it. But it looks pretty good. So there you go. That's how to do a hyperlapse. Alright guys, so something I forgot to mention when I was talking about how to do a hyperlapse is when you're out there taking your photos, make sure you're shooting in manual mode, because if you're not, if you're shooting in auto or something else like that, your camera sensor is already going to be adjusting to the brightness, and if a cloud comes by, it's going to shoot up the ISO or whatever. And when you're compiling this all together in After Effects and Lightroom, when you play it back, you're going to get this flicker effect, which you can eliminate in post through certain programs, but I would not suggest doing that. So when you're shooting, shoot everything in manual mode. It's going to be a lot easier in the end. Alright guys, so that is how to do a hyperlapse. I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. Let me know in the comments section if there's any other aspects of photography or videography you'd like me to make a tutorial on. Alright, so now you guys can go out and make your own hyperlapses. I'm excited to see what you guys create. Let me know, tag me in some of them. I want to see what you guys make. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Smash it if that's something you're into. If you liked the video, make sure you like it, and if you want to see more of my content, make sure to subscribe. It really helps me out. Alright folks, until next time, peace.